Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome back to my channel. Today, I would like to talk a little bit about the PhD position possibilities in Germany. Not only based on my own experience, but also a lot of other master graduates or the other colleagues have came to me to ask how to do this, how to apply it, which way is better if they would like to start a PhD study. That is why I would like to share my opinions or my experiences with you today here. So basically there are a few different possibilities to start your PhD. The first one is to apply for a scholarship after you graduate from your master study. Mostly these scholarships are published by the German Educational Ministry. In German it's called BMBF, Bundesministerium für Forschung und Bildung. And there might also be a lot of scholarships in DFG, Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, so German Research community or association. And there are also a lot of scholars by DAAD and different institutes like Humboldt Stiftung or Fraunhofer. So these kind of institutes, they supply yearly different kinds of scholarships for PhD students for different research directions, and please make sure to check it online on the homepage of each institute. One of the advantages for this scholarship is that you can fully focus on your PhD study, so you don't have to think about where your leading costs should come from, because this scholarship mostly are about 1,400 euros, sometimes with some actual fee that might be 1,550 euros per month. So that is a good amount to live in Germany, in Berlin, for example. And with that scholarship, you can really try to finish your PhD within 3 years or 4 years. You can take a lot of courses. You have maybe PhD scholarship colleagues, like PhD fellows with you together. You might get some colloquium or some lectures directly by this institute. So this will also motivate you a lot to finish your PhD as soon as possible. And you will also see you're not the only one that has difficulties by finding out the research methods or the theories by doing the field research. So all these issues that you might meet or you have met, you can discuss with your colleagues or fellows, which is really good and encouraging. And the disadvantage is that the whole scholarship application process might be long. So normally there will be a hand-in preparation phase for a proposal for a PhD, and then they will select, for example, 50 out of 250 proposals, and then they will have interviews with you and select perhaps 12 out of 50 students. So you might not only have proposal hand-in process, but also interviews, but also perhaps some exams, which is not so often. And at the same time, the scholarship mostly lasts for 3 years. So this means you also have some time pressure if you want to find a job after the scholarship just to continue to cover your living costs. Then you really have to have a good schedule and a good plan to finish a PhD. So that's the first method. And the second possibility is to find a research job at a university or in an institute. You might have seen some jobs published at the homepage of the universities, and if there are some research jobs that also supply the PhD positions, which means, for example, you get a 50% or 75% or even a 100% research position at a university with mostly a limited contract for perhaps 3 years or 5 years. And at the same time, they supply this possibility for PhD students, which means the data and the info that you have collected or you will collect for this position, for this project, you can also use in your PhD, which is really good because you earn money, you are working, and at the same time you are doing your PhD research, which is, saving a lot of time and money at the same time. So you are not only collecting your job experiences, but also collecting actually data, not only for your project, but also for your PhD, for your own study. So I think this is a really good method. If somebody would like to try to feel how is it in an academic world, then this is really good. Because the earlier you start as a researcher in your academic career, the better it is. If you would like to apply even for a professor, then it is even better that you have some research job experiences as well as perhaps teaching experiences at the same time. So quite often, if a 50% position is there, then there is no teaching task, and if there is a 100% position, then you might have to teach at the same time. So you are not only a researcher but also a tutor, which is perhaps also good for you, because to apply for a professor or a postdoc position, teaching experiences plays a very important role, of course. In this way, you also have colleagues that might be working for the same project, because a project needs more than one person normally, and also the professor, which can be your supervisor or one of your supervisors. And then you have perhaps also students, assistants, which also help you collect the data for you. So this is really practical for you, and it can save a lot of time, and it is also encouraging, because basically after collecting data for the project, you just have to write your own articles or your own book, which will be perhaps very quick even. And yes, that is the second method. And the third method is to find some job also in a company. There are different companies, especially the big ones like Siemens or Google. They will also offer PhD positions. So basically, you go into the company, working there, but at the same time, you are doing some research for the company. This is good for you if you would like to have a stable job, a stable career in the industry. You can perhaps already stay in this company even after the graduation, then for your whole life, which is really good, because in the academic world, the most projects are the third funding projects. So these fundings are connected with your contracts. If you are researcher in this kind of project, then your contract is limited along with the research period for this project. So some projects are 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, and then your contract will also be 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. This means perhaps 1 year before the project goes to end, then you have to start to find another job, another academic researcher position, which is not so stable or cannot give you enough safety feeling. So then you have to consider if this is suitable for you. And in comparison to this, PhD position in a big company will be very good, because normally after this PhD research time, you can still continue working there. You will not get a limited contract, but unlimited, and you can stay there as long as you want until you want to change your job. There is another possibility that you just come here and you don't care about the money or the working experiences. You just would like to start a PhD study as soon as possible, because you might have some visa issue or some, other family issues that you don't have time to search for a job or search for a scholarship. Then you can also try to find a supervisor, and then you can already start. Your supervisor will help you register in the university, and then you can already start as a PhD student, and you can apply for a student visa already. And after that, you can still try to find a job or a scholarship, of course. So this is also a possibility. But for some of the students that just start the PhD position first without a job or a scholarship, the living costs might play a role, right? And then you might need to consider which city you would like to stay in. I think there are some factors that might also influence your decisions if you would like, or you start considering to take a PhD position. The first one is the city. In Germany, like in winter, there are not so many days, especially in North Germany, that are sunny. So this is a big impact factor for a lot of people. For example, in Freiburg, the university there in Freiburg is in the Black Forest, which is close to the frontier between Germany and Switzerland, and I think even France. So people can go abroad, like go from Germany to France just at a weekend, and Freiburg has the most sunlight daytime, and this is I think a big plus for a lot of students. And some students prefer Berlin because Berlin is the biggest city, or also the capital in Germany, and Berlin has a very international intercultural background, which is really good because everybody can find a corner here in Berlin. There are French areas, like American areas. There are also, areas for the Turkish and areas for African families. So you always find a suitable place for you in Berlin. And there are a lot of pubs, clubs, and also cultural events here. There is beautiful landscape here, but Berlin doesn't have a beautiful winter. In winter, most of the time, it's raining. It's almost like 0 Celsius degree. Like now outside, it is like snowing, raining at the same time, and everywhere is just dirty, and people don't want to go out, and it's all dark. So this is, I think, also a big influence if the winter time, at least 3 months, is like this. A lot of people just don't want to stay here. And related factor is the geographical factor. In North Germany, you don't have such a convenience when you would like to travel. In South Germany, you can get to France, Italy, now Europe very quickly, but in North Germany, you firstly have to drive through the whole Germany. So along with that, it is almost like 6 hours or 7 hours, and the environments close by is like Poland and even like North Scandinavian countries, Finland, Denmark. So they are all very cold in winter. They are also not so warm in summer. So you have a limited travel possibilities here, and that is sometimes really important for the students that would like to travel a lot, or that do some field research in Middle or South Europe. And the third one is, of course, money, living costs. In South Germany, the living cost is much higher. Even the rent is much higher. And in North Germany, especially like in Berlin, it's okay in comparison to, for example, Munich or Frankfurt. So with the scholarship or with the researcher job, then it is not a problem. I think most of the living costs are covered, or perhaps you can even save some money. And another issue is, of course, the affiliation of the institute or the universities. A lot of people decide to start a PhD in a very well-ranking university like TU, Technical University of Munich, or Technical University of Berlin. And I think this is quite important if you really like to stay in an academic career for a long time. But if you just want to challenge yourself and to start a PhD just like this, I think normally if you go home, as a foreign student, if you go home with a German PhD title, it is already a lot of value. Then you don't have to consider a lot about the affiliation value of the universities. And another impact factor might be the professors. Someday you will have a research topic or research direction, and then you also have to check up which professor is interested in it or is doing this research or is working or researching already in this area, and that professor might be your supervisor, right? So if you your topic is in a niche area, then you perhaps can only find 2 to 3 professors in the whole Germany, then you don't have a chance to select. You just have to go there to ask, hey, would you be my supervisor? And if yes, I will stay just in your institute. If you have a very broad possibility and you are doing some research in the main area, then there might be a lot of professors. Then it depends on you. The chemistry between you and your professor should be there. There are very different kinds of professors. For example, my supervisor are very different. One of my supervisors is like, if I go to meet him and ask, for example, like, hey, how should I write this paper? Then he would say like, hey, this is your job. You have to figure that out on your own because you are a PhD student. And if I have already had a paper, then perhaps he would just review it, or even not. He would just say like, okay, you just publish. And if you can go through the peer review process, then it's already good enough. And some other colleagues have different supervisors, like they would like to discuss every details with you. They would like to also, sometimes push you to publish 2 or 3 papers in this year. And then I think this is very suitable perhaps for the students in a very framed educational system like in China, because the students are not used to innovative and active study planning, and there have always been a stable schedule for the students, like everything is organized either by the professors or by the institutes or the schools or the universities. So the students just have to go to the class, take those classes, and at the end take the exams and have good scores to pass them, then that's it. And for these kind of students, it might be really hard if you have a very German supervisor that gives you all the freedom for you to organize everything on your own. That might be a little bit challenging. Then you have to learn that at the very beginning, that you are the only one that is responsible for your own PhD study plan, and you have to schedule everything properly on your own. And you have to find out how to write your own chapter without very detailed opinions or supports from the supervisor side, because they are in the opinion that you should be able to do this on your own as a PhD fellow. That is quite different. So you have to figure out if the chemistry between you and your professor or your supervisor is there, and you can understand them well, and they can also understand you well. And like I said, if you have a very broad area, then you perhaps can ask, 10, 20 professors, and then you can pick 3 to 4 or 5 up as your supervisor committee, which will be in your final defense. And I think that is totally dependent on your research topic and your research direction, right? And there are also a lot of different workshops. If you are already registered as a PhD student in an institute or at a university, there are also a lot of events, for example, especially for female PhD students, or for some junior PhD students. There are also postdocs that can supervise you or give you some tips. There are some consulting offices in the universities, and at the same time, there are also a lot of different groups. You might find these groups either on Facebook or on Instagram, I don't know what you're using, or even in YouTube channels. These groups will also organize, some meetings, online, offline. There might be some schedules, like every day they will meet between 9 and 12 a.m. and you can just join them online via Zoom or via, WebEx or some online meeting tool, and then you sit all together. There will be some writing sessions. I am in such a group currently. So at the very beginning, they have used this very classic method, like 20 minutes writing, 5 minutes break, and then we all realize, okay, 20 minutes are not so long, so we need time to firstly just start getting in and focusing on our PhD paper, chapter, text, where we have been, and then we can start and consider writing something. So now our group changed it to 50 minutes writing time and then 10 minutes break, which is really good. And these kind of groups also help you a lot. There will be some welcome discussions, tips, exchange in between, so that you know, not only you have this issue, also other students have this issue, and you can exchange. Okay, today you are not in the best mood or in the best phase to write your text, but it is okay because other students might also have difficulties writing, because writing is very dynamic. So it's not like, okay, you can write every day at least 1 page. Some days you can research a lot, but you cannot write. You can read a lot, and you need to read also in advance. You have to have a review of the literature, for example, and you have to think through your research methodology. But other days, you can write just in the flow, and it's very dynamic. So you will see, okay, this is very encouraging, because not only you have this problem, but every person, every PhD student will face this or have faced this. So ups and downs are quite normal. And I think one of the most important points is that you should continue, no matter how difficult it is. If you spend at least 15 minutes per day on your PhD study, on your research, on your paper, then there is a continuity and there is a flow. You don't need to refocus after, for example, a 1 month break. And that might be really difficult, because you have to, recall your memory, where you were, how was your research, and which status and which problems were still not solved. And this re-entering is really difficult for a lot of people. So that is why a lot of people, just lock their PhD papers in a drawer and think at the very beginning, oh, okay, I will come back in 1 month, and then they never come back, because that is really difficult. So PhD study as a priority is very important. I think one of the easiest ways is to plan your PhD focusing time just in the morning, directly after you get up and have breakfast. And all the other things you can play after that. So you have like 100% strength and focus in the morning for your PhD, and after that you might get tired, you might have some other jobs to do, and if you do like this, I'm pretty sure you will be able to finish your PhD one day. And the last point to mention is that there are a lot of students that have had very ambitious plans, but then they feel so disencouraged because they realize quite fast that the plan doesn't work. And then they are pretty depressed for that, and they think that they are just, a failure. They're just not successful or they are not capable of being a PhD student, which is not true, because a PhD in Germany is a long-term run. It's like a marathon, and you can finish it within 3 years or 4 if you really want, and if you already have some really good ideas also in depth, and you have a very, very complex plan and schedule for it, and you don't have to worry about, for example, your living costs, your job, your visa, everything, then it's okay, it's good. But for a lot of students, they have just graduated from, or they have just finished their master's study, they still don't know, and they haven't been to the industry, to the career world, and this might be really hard for them, to start a PhD and to finish it within a short time, if they also have some other mini jobs or some research jobs, then it is really difficult. Then they will also realize very quickly that the plan doesn't work. So I think in this case, just don't push yourself too much. Don't burn out yourself, because once you have burnout, you really need to recover for a long time. If you do it very sustainably, then you can always change plan. The plans are there to change. So don't worry if your first plan doesn't work. You don't feel so depressed or disencouraged, because this is so normal. This is so normal. I guess like 99.9% of PhD students have had this issue. So just tell yourself, oh, it's okay, then I just need a little bit longer time, and try to reorganize it. And even if you have to start your work in between, or your other positions, or you have to change your job, or you have to move to another city, that is totally fine, because PhD is really a long-term challenge. Sometimes it's really like lifelong challenge. It means it is normal that during this period you will also have to face some other challenges. And if there are other challenges acute, then you have to reset your priorities, right? So this is totally fine. So hereby I just want to say, if you consider starting a PhD in Germany, then don't feel discouraged after watching my video. And I think these tips, you can save it in mind in advance, so that you know, okay, these are all normal. These are just based on my and also other colleagues' experiences. So I hope that this video can help you a little bit by considering about PhD study. And if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment below. And if you would like to receive some more videos about PhD, about life in Germany, then don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so wish you all the success. See you. Why I would like to talk about it? It is because that I myself am also a PhD student, and I have started my PhD with a scholarship for 3 years. So after I finished my master defense at TU Berlin in Berlin in Germany, I was so excited because I have already got the PhD position, and I was, it was just unbelievable for me how bright my life was gonna be. And I was scared, but I was also very, very excited to take this challenge. And I don't know, I just had a feeling like this is so surreal. I'm not so sure if I'm so lucky. Like, everything is so smooth. It was in a flow. I tried to find a job, and at the same time I applied for the PhD scholarship. I handed in the proposal, and then I got the interview invitation, and then I went through the interview with the 9 professors there, and then they selected me. I was like, wow, this is so unbelievable. Either I have to be so good, or they are so blind. Directly after the opening ceremony, the second day, I was on my way to my new office for my PhD scholar, and unfortunately I had directly a bike and track crash accident. If you have followed me a while, then you would perhaps know that directly after the opening ceremony for my scholarship, I had an accident with my dog, my first dog, George, and the track wanted to turn right, and it was green. I would have to ride my bicycle with my dog on the leash, but straight forward. Basically, the truck has to wait for me, but the driver didn't see me. I was in the blind spot, so unfortunately we had that crash, and I was in the intensive care, and my dog was in the animal clinic, and he didn't make it. George had a lung bleeding, and at 2 days later, his heart didn't make it because the bleeding in the lung has limited his oxygen absorption. So after that, I had a long break. So it was really a dark time for me. I felt like I wanted everything to be perfect. I am actually quite a perfectionist. But, you will always get a lesson from here or there. And somehow I get a huge lesson that I got an accident. I lost my dog, the one that I have searched for years. And I have searched through over 200 different breeding shops. I have searched in China, and then I have searched also quite a long time in Germany, and then I picked up the perfect dog for me, and then he was George, the border collie, my last one. I will share some links below. And he was just 2, and he was so cute, and he was absolutely a perfect dog. He had such a good character. And I got a new start for my PhD, and then swoop, there was an accident that I was hurt. The dog was dead. He was dragged by the track, and the track had a 40-ton container with it. So it was already just a miracle that I have survived because I laid between 2. I think the track has like 5 axes, and I laid between 2 tires. Like if the driver had stopped 1 second later, the whole truck with 40-ton containers would have just crashed upon my back, and I would definitely not survive that because all my organs would just be crashed or smashed. But I don't want to give too many details about that. But so it was just like from the top of the hill to really down to the valley, and I was so depressed. And I think with that lesson, with that experience, it has taught me that life is dynamic. Life is changing all the time, and you can plan whatever you want for your PhD study or master study or beautiful life abroad or like a bright future, but you also have to be ready for some extra surprises, and your plan can be changed all the time. So PhD doesn't have to be finished within 3 years or 4. You also can do it as a long-term job. You can finish it like a marathon, and that is also okay. So I'm quite in that Buddhism phase that I'm very chilled and relaxed, and I continue doing it, but I don't set a limit for myself or a deadline that I have to finish it within 3 months. I think with that, also based on our current condition, that we have 2 dogs, we both are working, and we are moving to China, and we also have a daughter here who is sick this week because she has got some virus, like the stomach diarrhea virus from the kindergarten, and all the teachers and the other kids and also the parents in the kindergarten are all sick. So with all these kind of surprises, I just don't try to set a deadline for myself, but I try to finish even a tiny part from my PhD, even 1 sentence. I think that is also successful. So I think that continuity and your huge motivation and also your perseverance, your willpower is the most important thing, which drives you to finish it. So I hope that this video can help you a little bit by considering about PhD study. And if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment below. And if you would like to receive some more videos about PhD, about life in Germany, then don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so wish you all the success. See you.